24 years ago, the remains of a Jane Doe were located inside a discarded refrigerator on Red Rocks Road in Colorado. We haven't forgotten you, Jane, and we hope you will be identified soon. She was between the ages of 30 and 45, and investigators believe she may have been white or part Native American. She was about 5 foot 8 inches tall with shoulder-length dark brown hair, and she may have worn dreadlocks. She was found wearing red long underwear, men's long underwear, with a Winston cigarette logo, a red crop top, blue jeans, red crew socks, and dark brown leather strapped sandals. She had had extensive dental work. Items found inside the refrigerator with her body dated to 1988 to 1992. She may have had a child or have been pregnant at least once. It says the date of her discovery was August the 10th, 1999, in Walsenburg, Colorado. Her estimated time of death was sometime between 1997 and 1999. She was mostly skeletal remains. She had at least one healed broken rib on her left side, and it says she had extensive dental work. Her teeth would have served as a noticeable feature. Now, like I said, in these photographs, you can see that while she may have had extensive dental work, she had what you might call shorter front teeth and longer canine teeth. So I guess that's what they mean, that her smile would have been something people would have noticed. Strangler brand blue jeans, size 34-34. She had a 36D cup bra, men's long thermal underwear bottoms with a Winston cigarette logo. No jewelry that they could find. They found a small metal clip on the left side of her belt loop that is similar to a money clip, but she was not wearing a belt. A man discovered her remains in an old abandoned refrigerator in a secluded rural area on Road 610, 3.5 miles off of exit 56 on Red Rocks Road. The discovery came about when the sheriff's office received a letter dated August the 10th, 1999, from a man in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In the letter, he stated that he came upon the remains while walking through the area 3 weeks earlier. A deputy was sent out to the scene. The man indicated that he found the refrigerator lying on its side with the door partially opened and what appeared to be a skeleton. After looking further into this, law enforcement located a jawbone and some other bone fragments about 100 feet outside of the refrigerator. The refrigerator was a Philco brand from the 1940s through the 1960s. It was a model that was made from the 40s through the 60s. In a separate article that I found about her, authorities believe that she has ties to South Dakota, and they believe that she is a Native American, indigenous woman from a reservation or a tribe in South Dakota. They are hoping that because she's had extensive dental work, meaning she had quite a few fillings, and because of the unique shape of her front teeth, that a dentist would recognize her and maybe kept records. They're hoping that maybe it was someone who worked on one of the reservations, a dentist that came onto the reservations and did dental work, or who lived in, or who had an office in that community in those areas. So they were hoping to use dental records to identify her if they could locate a missing woman who fit her description. Went missing, was last seen around 1999. That a dentist maybe would recognize her from the artist's renderings and be able to go through their records and see if they had anybody that met that description. And sadly, because indigenous women, there's so many of them out there missing that have never been discovered, have never been found or identified. But the circumstances around her death are unclear. They don't have a cause of death. And one other thing about her case is that when she was discovered, she was wearing a pair of unique sandals that are made in Italy. So authorities don't know if these were some sandals that someone out there may have had. It's possible that it could have been a pair of sandals that someone dropped off at a Goodwill, or they're not sure about that, or how she came to have these sandals, or if they were sandals that belonged to her. Someone may remember selling sandals like that, a store that may have sold sandals like that. The area where she was discovered is what people might describe as a local dump, where people would take their trash to dump it. And some people wonder if she was placed in the refrigerator and taken out there and dumped, or if she was taken out there after her death, or maybe before her death and placed in the refrigerator, because some of her remains were still inside the refrigerator while others were outside of the refrigerator. So they think it's possible. Could she have been placed in the refrigerator alive and tried to get out? I'm not really sure about that. It's a very big mystery about how that came to be. But the one thing that people want everyone to remember is her teeth, her smile. They say that if you had known someone with her teeth the way that they were, shorter front teeth and longer canines, somewhat crooked, that it would be unique, and especially if she was wearing dreadlocks. And they do believe that this woman was Native American. And if anyone has any information, they can contact the Colorado Bureau of Investigation at 303-239-4201. I found this woman's story, and as I was researching it, I realized that her identity has been discovered, but I wanted to tell her story anyway. For many years, she was known simply as the Warren County Jane Doe. Her remains had been discovered in Bowling Green, Kentucky in 1984. In July of 1984, the remains of an unidentified female were discovered along the northbound lanes of Interstate 65, approximately 2.5 miles south of Bowling Green, Kentucky. It was estimated that the girl was around the age of 12 to 16 years old. She could not be identified, and she became known as the Warren County Jane Doe or the Bowling Green Jane Doe. She was very small, as estimated to be about 4'11" and weighing less than 115 pounds. At the time of her discovery, she was wearing a long red multicolored blouse and red blue jeans, red Levi pants. It was noted that she likely suffered from an injury to the back of her head at some time in her life. She had several dental fillings and tooth enamel erosion on her bottom teeth. Throughout the investigation, multiple depictions of how the girl may have looked were developed. Facial reconstructions were released in the hopes that someone would recognize her. However, no one ever came forward, and despite their efforts, she continued to be a Jane Doe for nearly 4 decades. In an effort to finally identify her, the Kentucky State Medical Examiner's Office teamed with Othram Labs to determine if advanced DNA testing could help identify her. In 2022, forensic evidence was submitted to Othram. These leads were returned to officials with the Kentucky State Medical Examiner's Office, who launched a follow-up investigation. This investigation included extensive interviews and research of records, allowing for the identification. With the help of Othram Labs, they were able to come up with the identity of this woman, and she was identified as Patricia Armentrout. She was born April 20th, 1964 in Bethesda, Maryland. Patricia was adopted and renamed by her adoptive parents, adding another layer of complexity to her case. She was last seen in West Virginia in the 1970s. Now I want to back up just a little bit here and talk about how it was that Patricia was found in this field. It just says that a grim discovery made near I-65 in Warren County has perplexed detectives for decades. Well, on a personal note, it perplexes me too. I wanted to know why her adoption name, the name that she went by after she was adopted, and the name that she used through her life was never released. If it was, I couldn't find it. This could have helped the police. This could have helped them, and they very well probably didn't know her real identity. Why it was never released, I don't know. But the way I'm looking at it is someone out there may have known her by the other name, and when police started asking around and investigating how she came to be in Kentucky, maybe someone would have remembered talking to her and her maybe giving them some information about her plans, or just something. Someone would maybe have remembered her, but they didn't have her identity for 40 years. So by this point, most of the people that knew her when she was a young girl like that maybe had forgotten. Many of them may have passed away. I don't know anything about her family background other than just that she was adopted. But Wayne Mason, who was an instructor at Western Kentucky University, set out to pick blackberries. He was eager to find ripe fruit and do some bird watching. He parked his car just off the northbound lane of Interstate 65 and made his way to a wooded area about a mile south of the Green River Parkway. This is now known as I-165. As he walked through toward the blackberry patch, he hopped a fence and ventured toward the blackberry patch, but it wasn't blackberries that he discovered. A human skull and articles of clothing lying on the ground. He got into his car and drove to the nearest police station, which was on Nashville Road, and he informed the troopers about the find, and Trooper Elwood Smith was dispatched to the scene, and he confirmed the grim discovery, and he contacted the Warren County Coroner's Office, and they secured the area. And they began to dig and to look and to scan the area for more remains, and they found bones that were approximately 80 feet from the interstate. They found a pair of red Levi pants, a long sleeve blouse, a pair of girls' cotton panties, some hair strands. They quickly launched a search to find missing women in the region, and they were able to rule out 15 potential matches, all the way from Tampa, Florida to Illinois. And forensic experts at the University of Louisville estimated that the woman was between 14 and 20 years of age. Now, for many, many years, this woman's remains and the belongings that were found that day were kept in storage. And detectives at Kentucky State Police Post 3 in Bowling Green over the years had revisited the case, hoping for a breakthrough. And that finally came in March of 2023. Othram Labs, which is a forensic laboratory in Texas, had been contacted by the Kentucky State Police to take a look at this case and analyze the bones. Using advanced DNA, they were able to determine her identity was that of Patricia Armentrout. And it just goes on once more to say that Armentrout had been adopted and was living under a different name. Kentucky State Police eventually contacted her relatives and discovered that she was born in Maryland, and a family member in a different state confirmed her identity. This only added to the puzzle because now they knew that she was an adopted person. They knew where she was born and what her age was, which they believe that she could have been dead for up to 2 years when she was found. So this would have put her at around 18. She was discovered in 1984, which was 20 years from her birth date. So had she been there for 2 years, she would have been around 18 when she was left in this field. Police do believe that she was murdered and dumped into this field. Now, I asked the question, could it have been a truck driver? Could she have been another victim of the red-headed murder group that I did a story about recently? This would have fit the timeline, 1984. This killer was active through the late 70s through the early 90s, and many of his victims were found along the roadway, along interstates, Arkansas, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, middle Tennessee, around the Knoxville area. I go back to the case of Susan Lund, who went missing from Clarksville, Tennessee, which is not very far from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and would have been a few years after this case, but I just go back to these stories and I wonder if this girl could have also been a victim of this killer. And could she have hitchhiked a ride with this man somewhere? Or it says she was last seen in the 1970s in West Virginia. Patricia would have been a teenager in the 1970s, being born in 1964. She would have been between the ages of 6 and 16. She would have been right around 16 to 17 years of age in the late 1970s. And it doesn't go into any detail about when she was last seen, what year in the 70s. It just says she was last seen in West Virginia. Is that where she lived with her family? Was she a runaway? Did she have a troubled past? Had she gotten into a lot of trouble? Was she living a lifestyle that was high risk? Or had she been kicked out? Did she have problems at home? I couldn't find anything about her background or who she actually was, other than her birth name and the year she was born. And the police may have had more. Maybe they were holding on to something. Maybe they did have a suspect. My mind just keeps going back to this truck driver and the cases of these women who they do believe were many more, and it could have been more than one one murderer, but being that this was near an interstate, and police believe that she was actually killed and then dumped into this field, so it could have been that she was hitchhiking or someone picked her up or something like that. And I really can't find a whole lot about her background. This was her adopted name isn't mentioned here, so I guess they didn't want to maybe her family didn't want, the family that had adopted her. But I couldn't find anything going into any detail about anything about what had happened in those years. They said she was last seen in West Virginia in the 1970s. So whatever had happened to her in those years of her childhood is still a mystery to me. And if I find anything more about her, I will come back with a follow-up. But this is such a sad ending to her life. She was probably around 18 when she died. And it's possible that she did have a good home life and that this was her first outing alone. Having just turned 18, maybe she just decided to go on a road trip, or I don't know. I don't have any answers, and it's intriguing. Like I said, it's very sad. Maybe one day more information about her will come out. If anyone has any information about her case, they can contact Kentucky State Police at 270-782-2010. But I wanted to include her in this. And I'm getting ready to work on another case similar to this one where someone was found and was a John Doe for many, many years. And through this same DNA testing and help from these labs, his identity has now been found as well. Thanks for watching.